everyone! Remember that time I found that injured monarch in a field? I brought her home, nursed her back to health so I could release her? Well, on my walk the other day, I found a bumblebee who wasn't feeling so well. I am scared to death of bees, but I felt so bad for her I had to bring her home. If bees come out and we have a cold snap, they can't survive because they can't fly. Also, there's not a lot of food for them to eat early in the spring. I had to put her in a dog poo bag to bring her home, and I felt awful about it. But I just kept imagining her warming up, going nuts, and stinging and biting me. I know this most likely would not have happened, but I couldn't help thinking it. I got her home and put her in a small butterfly enclosure that I had. I put in a spoonful of organic local honey mixed with water, and as soon as she started warming up, she went right to the food. It was amazing. I've seen so many videos of people saving bees like this. They just need a little warmth and food, and then they're good to go. Once she had her energy back, I released her and she flew away. This got me thinking that I could really use something to put these bugs in because it's really hard to rescue them while holding a dog leash, and also trying not to touch them. I wanted it big enough to hold a monarch, but also with a way I could scoop up a bee safely without actually touching it. So I needed to invent something, and that's where this idea came from. I had some screen left over from when we rescreened the windows. Someone, I won't say who, shoved her head through our living room screen to bark at the mailman. I decided to use a zipper because it would be firm enough to act as a scoop when it was open, especially since it would be reinforced with the screen. And I'm going to use some elastic for a handle. There can't be any seams on the inside, so I'm going to use this ribbon to cover the edges on the outside. I had a long strip already cut that seemed like a good height, and then I rolled it up to get an estimate of how big I wanted it to be, plus a little for seam allowance, and marked it with a clip. I measured the distance to the clip and then trimmed it to size and straightened out the edges. I took a zipper and trimmed it down to a little bit longer than the height, making sure the zipper pull was in the middle so it didn't get cut off by accident. Then I turned in the edges about 1/4 inch and made sure they would be hidden under the zipper tape. I folded it in half to make sure I had the same seam allowance on both sides. Then I basted down each edge. I folded it in half and lined up the zipper over where I just sewed, making sure the raw edge was on the outside and under the zipper tape. I clipped that all in place, making sure the zipper teeth were right over the edge. I put a clip on the bottom of the zipper tape so it wouldn't slide off by accident, and then opened the zipper as far as I could to get it out of the way. I changed to a zipper foot and sewed right along the zipper teeth and also the outer edge of the zipper tape to hide the raw edges of the mesh. You may or may not be asking yourself, why am I so scared of bees? Well, I'll tell you. It's one of my earliest memories. I was sitting outside and pretending I was Snow White, you know, friends with all the animals, and I saw a chubby, fluffy bee flying towards me. I tried to wave it over to sit with me to be my friend, but it must have thought I was swatting at it, so it landed on my knee and stung me under my kneecap. I screamed and remember that sound echoing off all the other houses in the cul-de-sac. My dad came running outside, scooped me up, and brought me back in the house, and I could not stop crying. I learned 2 things that day. Bees do not want to be friends with me, and Sleeping Beauty was a far better princess. I honestly still to this day get a little hysterical when I see a bee, so it was very hard for me to work up the courage to actually get close to it to bring it home. It didn't help that a lady was walking her dog nearby and saw me trying to psych myself up. She kept asking me if I was okay, and I tried to explain that I was okay, I was just trying to save a bee and I was scared out of my mind. And she looked at me like I was nuts. Probably rightfully so. But I was determined because I knew this little bee would die if I didn't bring her home. Okay, zipper installed. I did a quick check to make sure it worked okay, and then trimmed the end of the zipper tape to match the edge of the mesh. Next, I had to try to figure out how big to make the circle for the ends. You can see my first attempt was way off. I measured the approximate width of the circle and then rounded up a tiny bit. I put a pin in a tape measure at about the halfway mark of how big I wanted the circle to be, and then pushed that into my ironing board. Then lined up a pen with the end and spun it around to get a circle. I eyed it up with the tube I made and it looked okay, so I cut my circle out to use as my pattern and cut 2 circles out of the mesh. I quartered the circles and the tube by folding it in half both ways and marking with clips, and then matched all the clips up so the circles would lay evenly. I did this for the top and bottom and smoothed out the excess fabric the best I could. Then I estimated how much elastic I would need for the handle. I burned the edges of the ribbon and elastic to stop them from fraying. I decided to baste the edges first because sewing that many layers together at such a weird angle was going to be too much. A lot of people tell you to make videos for a specific niche of people. So once again, for this video, I have narrowed that down to specifically me. So if you're still here watching this, thank you very much, and feel free to subscribe. Anyone else remember that song from when you were a kid? I'm bringing home a baby bumblebee, won't my mommy be so proud of me? I wonder if the person who wrote that song actually went to this extent to bring home the baby bumblebee. I highly doubt it. After that was done, I trimmed down the excess and folded the ribbon on top to cover the raw edges. I also tucked the elastic into either side of the top. Then back to the sewing machine to sew down the edges of the ribbon. I ended up running out of checkered ribbon, so I used solid gray for the bottom. It's a little wonky, but let's test it to see if it'll work. I made an anatomically correct bee model to test my new invention, complete with totally accurate life-size stinger. Oh no! An injured, freezing bee on the ground, but I don't want to touch it because I'm still traumatized from when I was 4. Just unzip the zipper and squish it to create an opening large enough for the bee to go through. Then slowly pull on the zipper to ease the bee into the bug saver thingy. It works! I can save bugs and not have to touch them. For monarchs, I'll just pick them up and put them inside, by the way. They can't hurt you. By the way, wasps and hornets, you're on your own.